Hey, good morning, brother.
Morning. How you doing, man?
Good, good. Sorry for the few minute delay there.
Oh, you're all good.
What's good in your world?
Same old, same old. Just trying to grow every day. How about you?
Nice. Good. I'm down in Miami right now. I'm in between sessions. I have a Baltimore session yesterday and Miami tomorrow, so just decided to come down here and work from here.
How often are you traveling?
3, 4 days a week.
Really?
hmm
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's been going on for how long?
Since probably 2022, 2023. Basically, the last 2 or 3 years, the travel has really picked up.
What caused that shift for you to kind of move into the coaching space, more of your attention and focus?
Um, just that's it's really just about what I mean, that's just what I enjoy.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily enjoy listing and selling real estate, but I do it so that way I can provide credibility and stay sharp, and understand the industry. But I don't enjoy listing and selling like I used to anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. And there's so much out there that's just nonsense being sold. So it's kind of good to actually have someone who actually knows what they're doing
Oh
that's selling
yeah,
something.
I mean, yeah, listen, like 90% of the trainers and coaches today are either not in the business or were never in the business. So
hmm
it's kind of like my mission to, like, not necessarily put people out of business, but to just tell the truth of what it really takes. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, on that note, first, thanks. I appreciate you taking the time.
yeah.
Anytime I can get with you, I'll take it. What are you kind of pitching now to agents that is needed to succeed in the marketplace that's going on right now? Like, what are some of the things you're advising people to do?
Well, the biggest thing is, so we have a new model that we've been teaching since since January. So this year we started teaching. It's called the Plax model, and the P, the L, the A, the C. It's PLACS, and so we just call it Plax because if you sound it out, that's what you sounded out, and that's basically the new um, listing agent model that we're teaching right now.
Okay. So, tell me a little bit about what that consists of.
So Plax, so the P in Plax stands for pre-appointment routine, marketing, and process. And so what we have found, and what I believe, just based on, again, being in the trenches with our people, is that more consumers are making their decision of who they're going to list with prior to the agent even showing up. It used to be, and you remember this, obviously, when you were an agent with us, we put all of our eggs in the you got to deliver the best presentation ever. Like, we practiced that, we role played it, like it was everything was revolved around the appointment, right?
hmm
And by the way, we still do that, but the appointment is maybe about 50% of the process today. And, going back to, just using the example of when we worked together, we put a lot of focus on training you on the actual appointment itself. But I wasn't the first one to come up with that. That was because Floyd Wickman, Mike Ferry, all the people that have gone before me taught, embedded it in me that you had to have the best presentation, at the table. And so, obviously I knew that. I recognized that when I would go out. I knew it was, working with sellers was hyper competitive. And so that's where our focus was. Today, I believe what happens at the kitchen table is maybe 50% of the entire decision making process of a seller. And so the other 50% comes in the P in Plax, which is the pre appointment routine, marketing, and process. And so basically, what the P in Plax means is, what do you do prior to getting there? Not just like what not just like a pre-appointment package, although that is part of the P in Plax, but that's like one of like 8 things. All right. So, like, for instance, kind of going a little deeper on it, what the P in Plax really means is, what do they see on you, on Instagram, on Facebook, on social media, on your website? In other words, what are you putting out there? Are you essentially screaming to the world that you are a top listing agent? And would your social media tell me that? And if it does, then that's going to put the seller in a position to say, you know what? I like what I see so far on this guy. I think we're going to like this guy, or I think we're going to like this gal. And now you're more likely to get the listing when you show up because they're already somewhat sold on you. And so you take that, we spend a lot of time talking about how to write good copy, what your video should look like literally getting super granular to what the social media of a strong listing agent looks like, so that when you do get the appointment, and that in itself, the P in plaques also leads to more appointments too, obviously, right? So then when you do get the appointment, okay, what's the pre-appointment process? Now there's a process we teach, what's called I just call it 5 touches. This is part of the new plaques model as well, where there's 5 touches from the time we set an appointment to the time we go on it, to where we're touching that client. Whether it be a pre-qual call, a text message, a pre-appointment package, a video text message, like just 5 touches from the time you set it to the time you go on it, increases your appointment set to met ratio. And it also, of course, will increase your met to signed, because at that point, they're probably pretty sold on you if you've touched them 5 times, plus you did all the pre-work. So, without going super detailed on it, the P in plaques is basically their perception of you based on what they see on social media, in your reviews online, causes them, and of course the process beforehand, what you do before you get to the appointment, causes them to make up their mind, at least mostly, not all the way, because they still want to know price, they still want to know terms, but they're like 80% there when you get to the kitchen table. And Alex, that's what's different of what we used to teach. What we used to teach was set the appointment, do the pre-qual. Maybe you send a pre-qual package if you want to. Maybe you send an email if you want to, but just make sure whatever you do at the kitchen table is dialed in to that. You're not leaving their house without a signed contract. And don't get me wrong, the A, so the L in plaques, so I'll ship to the L. The L is listing lead generation. And so, we teach agents, all the sources that we're working today, which our top sources are our database, past clients, and sphere of influence, but also database, social media. So we put social media in with database, because we're treating social media as, our followers on Facebook, our friends, our followers on Instagram, our friends on Facebook. We're essentially treating them as if they were in our database. And so we have more. It's crazy. You remember the listing and sales boards in our office. We have more. Like when I look at the boards, it's so fascinating to me, because we used to say social media is kind of a distraction, right? So now when we look at it, we'll see SOI dash Facebook. Remember, we always had the little dashes, SOI dash Instagram, SOI referral dash Facebook, right? We're seeing more social media listed as database. So that's a big listing source for us today. Obviously, expires for sale by owners. That's still our number 3 source of listings today. We still probably take somewhere between 15 and 18 listings a month, Metro Detroit, from that source. We have internet leads, is our 4th source of sellers, because obviously, a lot of them have homes to sell. And then our 5th source of sellers is hybrid farming, which is something we started to teach probably when you were around 2017. I think I found an old video from 2017. I don't know what years we worked together. I don't remember, but I know we had the Birmingham office because that's where you were at. But we started teaching hybrid farming in 2017. It's kind of it was a new concept at the time. We just put a new name to it. So that I just figured, well, hybrid cars are cool. Let's, whatever, that was a new thing then. So we called it hybrid farming. Basically, and you know what that is, that's treating a farm as if they're in your database. That's the difference. Most people, when they farm, they do postcards and pamphlets and whatever. We're like actually, going into the farm and hosting events. We're knocking on doors and letting them know of recent sales in the neighborhood, like really treating the farm as if it's like your database. And the outcome that we've seen there, Alex, because it is our number 5 source of listings today. And it took a while to get there, no doubt. But mostly because our agents weren't really embracing it. Now they're like totally embracing it. And it worked out perfectly because, as 2-3 years back, Taylor went from operations into sales. And so she asked me, what she would have to do in order to lead the sales team. So, well, you've always been an operations person, in order for the sales team to respect you, and they respect you as an operations person, but in order for them to respect you as a sales leader, you're going to have to show them that you're willing to get in the trenches with them and sell homes. And so she said, well, how do I get some sales real quick? I'm like, well, it doesn't work that easily. I'm like, you want to call expires and for sale by owners? And she's like, absolutely not. Okay. Which I understand, her personality. That makes sense. I said, well, why don't you start with hybrid farming? I feel like, a database takes a while to build, but what we've been teaching in hybrid farming, we're seeing good success with it and fairly quick success with it. Alex, within 18 months, she followed our hybrid farming plan like to a T in her neighborhood. And she had 13 closings within 18 months in her neighborhood, her hybrid farm, where she had done nothing to add value to this. And you remember back then, like when we first started talking about it, I should take that back. She created the neighborhood Facebook group years ago before she was even like really selling, just because that was something that we taught in hybrid farming. Anyways, in 18 months, 13 closings, and she had 49% of the sales in that neighborhood in 18 months using hybrid farming. And all she did something of value each month. She hosted a bingo night for the seniors in the community. She hosted a pool party when the pool party opened around Memorial Day. She brings popsicles on random Saturdays to the pool. Like once a month, she's doing something of value to the community, and that led to 13 transactions in 18 months. So that's the fifth source of seller business. That falls under the L in Plax. The A stands for the appointment. All right. So the appointment is still important. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in there. We call it today, Alex, we call it the other 50%. So it used to be the be all end all, right? As you know, it's today we consider it about 50% of the process. The other 50% is in the P. So the appointment itself must be dialed in, right? We follow a listing script. We've taken old scripts of Mike Ferry and Floyd Wickman's and some of the people in the past, and we've kind of blended them together and made our own version of it. So don't get me wrong. We still write, chant, role play. We're still dialed in with our presentation, but we know what happens at the kitchen table is only about 50% of the reason why they're hiring us. The other 50% is what they see, hear, read, etc. before we even get there. That's the A in Plax, the listing appointment. The C in and by the way, well, we call it the appointment, but also I should clarify, we also practice and study the price reduction appointment because we treat that phone call as an appointment. And those obviously can be done in person as well. We treat the seller, the offer presentation to the seller as an appointment. So when I say A in Plax is the listing appointment, what I really mean, it's the appointment, and it's all the appointments related to being a strong listing agent. So that'd be the listing appointment. That would be the price reduction appointment. That would be the buyer offer appointment, helping them understand the value and accepting the offer. That's the A in Plax. The C in Plax is close and handle objections. So this one hasn't changed too much. Most of the closing lines are still the same. The techniques that we teach in that, we do a lot of yes sets techniques, which is, helping the consumer understand that it makes sense to say yes. Like, do you feel like I can sell your home? Mm-hmm. Do you feel this market plan has what it takes? Uh-huh. And I know you're not thrilled with the price, but do you feel comfortable about this price? Uh-huh. And are you ready to put me to work for you? Right. Like there are some techniques that we use that we've been using for a while on the closing, but more so the C in Plax is handling closing and handling objections, because if they want to work with you, then chances are they're going to give you objections, and then what are your responses to those objections? So same thing, right? Chant, role play, all the closes, all the objections. That really hasn't. The A and the C really hasn't changed in the last 10 years. It's the P and the L that's changed a bit, and then the S in Plaque stands for spread the word. And we teach a concept which it's probably not new, but it's something that's very passionate to us, and that is, we call it the 2-to-1 formula. And so what we do, Alex, is we hold, and we didn't do this back in the day, but we do this now. We hold every listing accountable to generating 2 transactions. So like, let's just say I were coaching you and you say, all right, Jeff, I want to be a strong listing agent. I'll ask you, how many homes do you want to sell? You say, hey, I want to sell 50 homes a year. Awesome. So what we're coaching agents to, especially ones that are willing to buy into and follow our 2-to-1 formula, is if I were coaching you, I'd say, okay, Alex, we're not going to focus on selling 50 homes. Instead, we're going to focus on taking 25 listings. Because if you can take 25 listings, we're going to get a second sale from each one of those listings. And here's the list of 11 ways we're going to do that. And so that's what we teach in S. It's called spread the word. In other words, it's how do you, in a nutshell, I think, especially during the busy season, and you're just as guilty of this as I am, during the busy season, you take a listing, you have a sale, you close it, you wipe your hands, and you move on. Well, now we're teaching 3 to 5 social media posts to tease the listing, 3 to 5 social media posts during the listing, 3 to 5 social media posts after the listing, right? Like we're doing everything we can to quote unquote milk the listing to get more attention, which will of course drive more leads, drive more traffic, and hopefully more sales to us. And so the S in Plax is newer to us because we're teaching agents how to maximize when you do take a listing. How do you not, so many people focus on, coming soon, highest to best, open house. And like, they try to squeeze everything into like 3 to 5, 7 day period and get everything that they can in that, right? And we're like, no, 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 no. Tease it for a week, coming soon for a couple of days. Tease the open house. When you're when you're at the open house, go live on social media. We're thinking about how we can capture more from every single listing we take. And that's the Plax. And so Plax is the model that we've been teaching this year. And, in January, we'll have our next big event. We'll probably call it Plax 2.0 because we'll probably build on the foundation. Obviously we're learning and growing as we go as well. So that's what Plax is.
Nice, nice. So going back to P, you said that's probably 50% of winning the listing before you even show up.
That's what I believe. And this because, for myself, especially, I'm hearing now more than ever, well, Jeff, we did a little research on you and it looks like you travel a lot for training today, right? So I know they're watching, so yeah. I'm convinced that half of the appointments I go on today, their mind is already made up whether they're going with me or not. And that's the same thing that we're teaching our agents.
So you think that also helps with the value add, meaning that anyone that comes in saying, I'm an agent for ABC Realty and my biggest sales point is I'll do it for 4%. And do you think doing all of that pre-work and showing what you do and then having the track record to back that up will help a seller go with you even at 6 when everyone else is offering 3.5%, 4%?
I without question believe that it helps us maintain a higher than average commission. There's no doubt about that.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. And so it's very systemized, right? And you need that as you scale. Kind of switching gears, what do you think is the biggest difference between a mid-tier producer, maybe $2, $3, $4, $5 million producer, and someone doing over that $10 million mark? Do you think it's systems? Do you think it's consistency? What do you think is the difference?
Oh, I know exactly what it is. A $3 to $5 million producer is running what I believe is what I call a personality-based business. In other words, they're getting business because of their pleasant, pleasing, charming personality. They're not actually treating it like a business. Now, the exception to that would be with someone's first or second year. You can be treating it like a business and only wind up doing 3 million your first year, which is still a good year.
Yeah.
I think I did just over 5 million my first year, back when sales prices were like 120,000. Anyways, but the difference between a $3 to $5 million producer and a $10 million producer is a $10 million producer is now treating their business like a business. They might have a strict schedule or at least some form of a schedule. Probably not strict, because if it was strict, they'd probably be doing 20 or 30 million, but they probably have some form of a schedule. They probably have some system that's keeping in touch with their database, right? They're starting to think about their business like a business person versus just a salesperson. A $3 to $5 million producer kind of sees themselves as a salesperson, where their job is to network and get as many business cards out as possible and, hold open houses and impress people with their personality and the way they dress and the way they look and the way they talk. That's a personality-based business. You take someone with a good personality and good charisma, good attire. Like, you take someone like that and teach them just a few things on how to run a business. Like, here's what your schedule should look like. Here's how you add value to your database. Here's what another source of business could look like. Why don't we refine your listing appointment and actually have a dial that you teach them a few business concepts? And that's the difference between a $3 to $5 million producer and a $10 million producer.
So on that note, a lot of it, mindset, execution, systems, like you were talking about. What, obviously you've done what you've done. You're going across the country. You've built an incredible business. You've owned companies. What keeps driving you? Like, why do you keep doing what you're doing?
Without question, and we were talking about it a little bit at the beginning, but it is because I'll never forget, and I'm not even going to name the name of the company. This is no disrespect to the company that hired me to lead an office. And by the way, this is all franchises and companies. So like, literally, it doesn't even matter the name on the sign. I'll never forget, I had an opportunity to run an office in Livonia, Michigan, a suburb of Detroit you're familiar with. And I was 20 years old, and I had just completed 18 months selling real estate. And in those 18 months, I sold about 41, 42 houses. And someone took a chance on me to run their office. And I was given the training manual that the company wanted us to teach agents. And now, again, this was the parent company. This was the franchise. This wasn't, this wasn't like the person who hired me said, yeah, follow this. And I was flipping through the training manual, and I was thinking to myself, like, I think I understand what's going on here. Their job in most real estate brokerages, all right. This, by the way, this applies to all. So I know some people are gonna say, oh, I can't believe he said that about his first brokerage or whatever. Like, I'm gonna go look up and see where he's at. No. This applies to all brokerages. Okay. Most of you, if you're watching this and you're Metro Detroit, you can probably figure it out. Most brokerages, what I've learned, Alex, is their goal is to get agents to a point to where they can make enough money to pay the bills and have a little bit left over. And that's it. There isn't any sort of internal brokerage, franchise, corporate training to where they actually do want to see you succeed at a high level. Once you get to a ceiling, if you will, to where you're paying your bills to the brokerage and you're paying your bills at home, the brokerage business, they're good, right? Because as you know, the capping system, I actually think the capping system is one of the best things and one of the worst things that happen to the industry. All right. And, the reason is, I know a lot of agents are going to say, oh, I love the capping system because then I get, 90 or 100% of my commission or whatever. Okay. But what you don't understand is once you reach that level, Alex, the brokerage now has zero incentive in most cases to help you do more business. And that's why I think you see so many successful teams today. I mean, forget ours, just any successful teams, because agents realize that they need someone to hold them accountable. They need more structure. They need someone, for lack of better terms, to care about them when they're a $3 million producer or a $30 million producer. Because in a lot of brokerages today, $3 million producer, $30 million producer might pay the same amount to the house. And how is that any incentive for any company? Again, I don't care if it's Remax, Century 21, Gold Banker, ERA, Keller Williams, eXp Real. Once the incentive to the brokerage is gone, they're not going to go out of their way to make sure you sell 13, 15, 20, 30 million in real estate. And so I remember in that moment thinking to myself, if I ever get the chance, I'm going to be the guy that tells the truth. And it might piss a lot of people off along the way, but I'm going to tell the truth of what it takes to succeed. And I remember in that moment. Now, fortunately, I had a great supportive broker that was very much involved in another training platform. And they're like, have at it. Like, yeah, that's fine. Throw the book out, throw the open house book away, and tell them what you think it's going to take. And in that office, that became the fastest growing office in terms of production for the 2 years that I led it. It was number one. It knocked off Birmingham, Grosse Pointe, some of the communities that we were number one 2 years in a row because I did it differently than what the book said. And I just committed at that moment. I just thought to myself, because, I had a chance to meet Floyd Wickman when I was young, and he made a great impression on me. And I just remember telling him, hey, I want to do what you do one day. And, he gave me a little bit of advice on how to do that. And here we are.
That's crazy that you were talking about that so long ago, and it still feels like that's still the same case right now with everything that's going on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That has, the brokerage industry is broken to some degree. Now, don't get me wrong. You get a good, like in your brokerage, obviously they saw potential in you and said, yeah, we want to put this guy in front of our agents. That's a good broker. That's a good leader. But not a lot of brokerages operate that way. A lot of brokerages operate from the standpoint of just get them to 3 million, just get them to 5 million and we're good, and I hate that about the industry. And that's the curse. That's the double-edged sword of the capping system. Honestly, it is, because agents say, all right, I got to 90% or I got to 100%. But it's like, yeah. And now there's no incentive for the brokerage to help you do any more business. Right. So even if I'm not projecting and saying that this is what everyone should switch to, but I think agents would be better off. And I know this sounds backwards. And this is where, if I was on stage, agents would throw tomatoes at me, especially if their brokers were in the room. I actually think agents would be better off if forever they had to pay 10, 15, 20, 25% of their commissions to someone, because that person, that system, that company would continue to pour back into them to make sure they always keep doing more.
Mm.
I mean, honestly, like if you think about it, that is the truth. And so,
Yeah. Yeah. There's more incentive.
right, I know no one wants to think about, well, that's why I joined this company, because, that's why I went solo, because now I can get 100%. Okay, first of all, you and I both know there's no such thing as 100%. Okay,
Yeah.
you're going to have business expenses that didn't exist before. Just look at your tax return. Okay, your taxable income does not match your 1099, so you're not on a 100% split. Let's be clear about that. But really, that would fix a lot of things in this industry if somehow we could get all the brokerages together. Again, I know the agents are going to hate me for saying this, but I'm an agent too, by the way, so I get it. I got a real estate agent hat on. If somehow we could get all the brokerages together and say, all right, no more capping system. The most you could get at our company is 90% or 85%. I'm telling you, everyone's bottom line in the industry would increase if we move to that model.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never heard that point of view, and I agree because there's more incentive, which makes sense. So if you
Now
had
you have
to,
companies like Coldwell Banker, Century 21,
yeah,
Remax, Keller Williams that are going to create systems to
mm-hmm.
make sure when Alex wants to do 20 million, we still win. So let's
Right.
help him get there.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're creating systems to help you do that don't exist today.
Yeah, interesting. So if you had to contribute a couple things that really helped you get to where you are now, and sustain this over such a long period of time, what do you think that was?
Well, you have to have, and I know this sounds cliche, but you have to have a burning desire to keep you going every day. And so if you don't have that burning desire, the best way to manufacture it is to identify what it is you want in life. You've heard of vision boarding. Identify what it is you want in life and keep it in front of you every single day. Now, I know this sounds egotistical or whatever, but I don't have to do that anymore. I used to do that, right? I still, don't get me wrong, I have visions of the next boat that I want. I'm seeing a boat go by and I'm immediately looking it up and saying, all right, that's on my vision board. I still do that, but it comes from here now, and I don't know how to explain to get that to happen. So all I know is if it's not coming from here yet, first of all, you can evolve, number one, but number two, you at least have to wake up every day and know exactly why you're doing it outside of just for the commission check. Because that's usually, by the way, that is like an agent managing their time. An agent's time management problem doesn't stem from someone who says, oh, I'm just not a morning person. No, I'm just not good. I'm just not good in the morning. No, it doesn't come from that. It comes from them not being clear why they're waking up early. It comes from not being clear, what they're going to do with their time when they do wake up. So agents don't have a time management problem. They have a want problem. They have a lack of knowing what they want.
Do you think they keep it ambiguous purposely because then if they come up short, they'll realize they failed and they don't want that?
Well, I think there's some truth to that. It's the same reason why, people don't like telling a lot of people about their goal, because
right.
They come up short. Well, then nobody will know. So yes, but it's also, we know that the accountability is why coaching companies like ours exist today. Yep. Because a brokerage isn't going to hold you accountable. That's not their role. That's not their model. Again, going back to, if they were still receiving 10 or 15% or 20% on every deal, maybe they would. But that's why coaching companies exist today, because we're filling in that gap for the agents. So now they pay a coaching company to hold them accountable versus their broker.
Yeah, I'll never forget too. We were in the Birmingham office years ago and I asked you that question. I just started, I'm like, how did you get to where you are? And you just looked at me and you said, it's no secret. I just outworked everybody.
Yeah.
Like that was just literally what I did.
Yeah.
And I think that's the truth.
Yeah. Yes, I was, and I still, don't get me wrong, I'm still intense with my schedule today. It's just different. Like before, I used to wake up and people were shocked to hear this, and you didn't really see this because when we opened Birmingham, that's kind of when our culture was then split, because you had the agents in Plymouth who grew up with me, and then you had these new agents coming on in Birmingham. So you didn't really, other than Tuesdays and Thursdays, you didn't really get to see my work ethic and so forth. But prior to Birmingham, And even during Birmingham, every Saturday morning, I would go right to the Plymouth office at 8:30. I was in the Plymouth office every Saturday morning at 8:30. And that's why you remember on our ISA model, our ISAs had to be in at 9 o'clock every single
Yep.
Saturday. That started with me because I was in at 8:30 every Saturday in Plymouth. And so I treated my Saturday mornings no different than a Wednesday morning. And in my mind, most real estate agents are available on the weekends, but I wasn't just available. I was following the same schedule on a Saturday as I would on a Wednesday. So yeah, I do think that I figured out a way to outwork a lot of people. And obviously I probably put in more hours than a lot of people. And hard work works no matter how talented you are.
Yeah. Oh, I saw it. Even it was 2 days a week. Cause I remember I was in the office at 8 o'clock making cold calls and you were there too, coming in
Yep.
from an appointment or doing whatever, wrapping up whatever for the day. And so for you to sustain that for as long as you have, how do you avoid burnout?
You just keep raising the bar. You
Mm,
just keep raising the bar. The minute it becomes boring and mundane, that's probably where burnout sets in. So when I mean raising the bar, for me, raising the bar was, building the nation's largest training and coaching organization. Because did I get bored listening and selling real estate? Heck yeah, I did. But also keep in mind for anyone that's watching this, like, yeah, I'm bored too. I'll say, well, how long have you been doing it? 3 years. Okay. All right. I'm doing it. This is like my 23rd year now, believe it or not. So like
yeah.
I got a reason to be bored after 20 years or whatever. So now I'm grinding the same way I work to build back then. JGA, Jeff Glover Associates, was now Glover Agency. That grind, I'm on that exact same grind, but it started over at day one in 2018 when we launched Glover U.
Mm.
And I was grinding. I'm still grinding. I mean, I'm in between cities right now. Every day I'm in a different city right now, other than Saturdays, Mondays, and Tuesdays. Those are the days that I'm in the office still.
That burning desire that you're attached to that growth process, do you think that's something that's innate that you're born with, or do you think that evolves throughout your business life?
So I think you probably have something that happens to you, or something that. No, I don't think you're born with it. I think you get in the right or wrong situations, the right or wrong rooms, you meet the right or wrong people. I think through life you meet people that are good for you, people that are bad for you, and everyone in between. And those conversations, the exposure, I talk a lot about exposure to
Yeah.
different thoughts, different concepts, different ideas. I think it grows from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Because everyone told me early on, your network is everything. I'm like, what the hell does that even mean? But
Mhm.
as I've gotten older and now built the business, it makes complete sense because who you surround yourself really creates opportunities. It puts you in situations. And the only way to get there is to get out there and offer value to people.
Without question. Yeah. I think exposure, when people ask me, and maybe you've asked this, and I don't know if I answer this other than outworking everybody. But today, when people ask me, what does it take to be the best at my craft? The word that I respond with is exposure. You
Mm,
you you have to expose yourself to people who are doing more, doing bigger, doing better. Otherwise, when you are the one at the top in your organization, you start to believe everything that everyone tells you, and you start thinking that there's nothing possibly out there that's better. And so for me, I've always been chasing people that are doing better than me. Even when I was selling 100 homes a year, 10 years in a row, 227 was my peak year, probably around 2017, 2016, somewhere in that range. I hit 227 units that year. And I was still role playing, practicing. I was still going to conferences. I was still thinking that there was somebody out there that was probably better than me that I could meet, that I could learn something from. So I don't care where you're at. I don't care what company you're with. An example of this, and I know I'm a little biased because we put on big events now, but it kills me to see agents, go to, even in my own company, to just your company's events. Like you got to expand your mind. You cannot just go to your company's conferences. You have to see. Now, I'm not suggesting you go see what's out there from a like recruiting and switching company standpoint. The exposure to other people and other ideas is going to stretch your mind. And once your mind stretches, it's like a balloon. Once you put air in a balloon and you let the air out, that balloon is stretched further than it was before it was in the bag. So exposure is the number one key for what I would say are good producers, top producers, to go to the next level. They hit a ceiling if they're not getting the right type of exposure. And so
mm.
so in my mind, our summits and our retreats, the one we do in Traverse City every summer and the one we do in Phoenix now every winter, that's my way to give people exposure to different ways of thinking. we have, now 1,500 people that show up to those events from all brokerages, all brands. It's a pretty cool environment to be in.
Yeah, that's awesome. How do you navigate that elevation of the group that you surround yourself with, right? You got to start somewhere. And as you continue to grow, how do you continue to chase people who you view above yourself so you can get to where they're at?
Well, you have to be keeping an eye out for people who are really winning and not fly by nights. On social media, there's a lot of people who are winning briefly.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the people that you want to follow. You want to follow the people that have proven track records for years and years, and who are winning consistently over and over. So you got to seek it out. It's up to you to go find it. They're not going to find you.
And so the people that you do find that are at that certain level, do you feel that they're generous with their mentorship, or do you feel like you have to offer something of value for them to even entertain it?
Well, I think that people at a high level very much value their time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, for instance, for me, okay, I have people that pay me to coach them one-on-one. So if you or anyone were to call me up and say, hey, would you mentor me? A phone call here and there, I'll take your call, I'll return it, I'll give you advice if you got a situation, but I can't disrespect the people that are paying me a good amount of money per month to coach. You'd have to get in my schedule. So I think that a lot of high achievers probably are the same way, right? Like, I could pick up the phone and call an executive from any one of the large real estate organizations today, and I'd get a call back and I'd get 15 or 20 minutes of their time, but I wouldn't get a regular mentorship unless, I hate to say it, unless they have something to gain, right?
Right.
And something to gain doesn't necessarily have to be financial. It might be influence. It might be they might ask me for something in return. There's usually an exchange of value that takes place there. And that has nothing to do with people being, not generous. It has everything to do with people very much value their time at a high level, and they probably have a lot of people paying them for their time. So if you have people paying you for your time, it's very hard to agree to do things at no cost when you have people that are paying you for it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And on that note, I mean, you've been very generous with your time. I appreciate everything. It's always good to catch up, and we got to talk more, man. We got to talk more. I love anytime I can get and pick your brain. That's awesome to hear. And I'm watching you. I know you're talking about exposure. I see your stuff. So it's awesome to see what you're growing into and kind of the world domination you have planned.
Well, I just believe that there's not enough people telling the truth, A, and B, there's not enough people actually in the trenches. And so if I commit to our audience every time. I don't care how much it drives me crazy to be sitting in a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath ranch in Livonia taking a listing. I will go do it just so I know exactly what objections they're going to give me and what I have to say and do to get that listing. And that's always going to keep me ahead of a lot of the competitors today that are in my space.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, honesty always wins, right? And it's so few in today's world that it shines through pretty quick. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much for your time. And we'll definitely talk again soon for sure.
We'll see you soon. All right, brother.